going?
Yep, we're live.
All right, we're going to get started then. I know other people will be coming for sure, but always hate to hear the fire department waiting. So why don't you guys go ahead and get started, and then we'll let you head out so you don't have to.
We don't have anything really new to share, other than the common sense stuff. Labor Day is coming, and we urge everybody to be careful with your barbecues and all the things that you do. We're open 24 hours a day, and we're part of the neighborhood, so if you need anything, any kind of emergency that you don't want to call 911, just come knock on our door if you need smoke detectors, and we do blood pressures. So any of that, we do blood pressure checks. That's all I have today.
Anybody got any questions for the captain? All right, well, thanks guys for
Okay,
coming out. Really
thanks.
appreciate it. We'll let you.
See you later.
All right, so just a real quick reminder, we're going to try to keep the meeting to an hour. We pretty much do. So, that being said, then if things go a little long, might have to cut off a particular guest or topic. And I'm sure that any of those people would be more than happy to talk with you after the meeting, or give you an email address or phone number that you can contact them. We do like to try to respect everybody's time with an hour-long meeting. I don't see Alan isn't here right now to do the Treasury Report, so why don't we start by talking about the sign at Brinkman DeLorme Park. So we just found out today from Andrew Hartzell, who carved the original Parkside Historic Neighborhood Association, Parkside Historic Neighborhood sign that's in Brinkman DeLorme Park right now. And we reached out to him to make us a new sign, which will add to the existing sign that will show that it's now Brinkman DeLorme Park. So we learned that it's going to cost about $1,000, or it's going to cost exactly $1,000 for that. And what we were thinking was to raise those funds outside of the membership dues. A lot of people have already been willing to express willingness to donate to have that, hand constructed. And so about, 4 or 5 hours ago, we mentioned it to Jenny, who said she would start thinking about some fundraising ideas. So.
And that's as far as I got.
All right, so why don't we talk about that for a second? I know, my wife and I, Gretchen, who's not here today because she's ill, are committed to donating. I'm sure at least $100 towards the $1,000. So we can do a formal, we can do an actual fundraiser, or we can just kind of think about, does it seem reasonable that we can get that amount from just people donating? Anybody got any thoughts about that?
What if we did a fundraiser sort of within our community, sort of like a GoFundMe or something like that for the sign, and just see what we come up with, and then come up with something else to make up the difference maybe? Maybe if our goal is to raise it just sort of within Parkside community, and then if we're not able to do that, we can reach out to businesses in the community too. We can reach out to Don Callahan and even the liquor store across the street.
J-Ram?
Yeah.
So,
radio station?
WRUU?
No,
The-
152nd.
105.3. That's not a bad idea.
They're
They
big.
are in our neighborhood.
Yeah, great.
I think that's a great idea. We do need to give Andrew a $500 deposit. So one thing that we need to ask you, the community, is if it will be okay if we took that money from the treasury right now, which will be
We can cover the check.
yeah, so we can cover the check for him to get started, and we'll replenish it once we get the donation. So real quick, let's just take a quick vote on that and see if people are all in agreement with that. Is everybody okay with us taking that money to do the down payment? Is anybody opposed? Okay, so we'll then go ahead and take that money out for the initial deposit on doing that project. All right, so then I guess maybe we'll revisit either online or next month, depending on.
I also got an email from Brent, who is working on the park. Guess what they're putting in?
Trash can?
It's a trash can.
Sweet.
He sent me an email. He's like, "We've decided to put a trash can in the park." I'm like, "You've decided?" So,
What kind of them?
I know. So they thought it would be best near the bench, but not right next to the bench. They figured near that electrical panel that they've installed would probably be a good spot. I told them I would take a vote today just to kind of clear it with everyone since we have the time. How do you guys feel about that? Is there anyone who thinks that's a bad spot for it, would rather see it somewhere else within the park?
Is this gonna be a trash can that the city maintains?
Yes. Yeah.
What's also good too about a trash can is that when it's on the city maintenance schedule, then they don't just pick up the trash, they don't just come and grab the bag, they actually clean up around it. So it's also to our advantage that they'll come and clean up the park more often. That's one of the reasons why we really wanna have it too, is because they're doing a good job mowing it, actually looks nice, it looked really nice, a couple days ago when I went by it, so. Okay, good, well then, that sounds good. And I think we're still gonna plan on trying to do something in the fall in that park.
Yeah, I've reached out to Russell from Dark Shark and I still haven't heard back from him again. I'm gonna reach out again in a couple of days and see. Sometimes he's slow to respond, but this has been at least a week, so.
And I know, just to mention, I mentioned in the last couple of meetings too, is that, Darlene Jackson from the city, she helps us with a lot of things. She's going to help us get more trees put in too, in the new year, because this year, by the time the park had been set, it was too late to add new trees. They only do it sort of the first quarter of the year, basically, so, near the end of this year, we're gonna try to finalize all those plans, so if you have some thoughts or feelings about that, then we're gonna bring that back up and make sure that you let us know how you feel about that, so we can make the trees, how everybody likes them. One of the things we're gonna try to, I know, is put more of a buffer between the park and the house
Yeah.
that's there. So that's that's one priority, but if you think around the edges or anything else, then let us know. And no, was it no crepe myrtles?
No sweet gum.
No
That's
sweet
really
gum,
the only
that's-
thing. The
that's
crepe
the-
myrtles people like, and
Yeah.
they seem to be popular.
All right, so any questions for Denny about the park stuff for now?
Did you consider the bananas? Approaching the bananas?
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's
Robin's
really
gonna
good.
win on all the-
That, seriously.
Yeah.
Would you like a position?
Right.
Fundraising.
Development.
Yeah, development.
Seriously. All right, well, that's great. Thanks so much, Jenny, appreciate that.
Of course.
Alan, you wanna give us a sort of abbreviated treasury report based on
Sure.
issues we've got?
Yeah, well, it was an interesting summer. The Bananas game was a sellout, which was excellent. All the tickets that were available were sold. We didn't make any money on that. That was a community activity. Money came in, money went out. We currently have just over $1,000 in the bank, which is about where we are most of the time. I did pick up, over the last 2 months, 9 memberships, annual memberships, which is good. There are 3 or 4 new members. Thank you to the new members. I'm still going through info from Ronald Gretchen Oliver's way and sorting it all out. But we're in good shape. We're hoping that within the next 2 weeks, we're gonna get our bank account straightened away, get some old names off the account and get a couple of new names on it. I went into the bank this morning with Todd Malden, who was a former Parkside treasurer, and he is a signatory, so he was able to access the account. And the woman in the bank told us everything we need to do to get our accounts in order so that I, the treasurer, can actually access the account. Right now, I can't access our bank account because most of the people who are officials on the account, they call them the business resolution team, are no longer in Parkside or among the living. So we're trying to sort it out. We've tracked down a neighbor who is a business resolution team member, and we're gonna drag her to the bank, hopefully not kicking and screaming, so that we can get things up to date. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks, we'll be in good shape.
Does anybody have any questions for Alan? All right, thank you so much, Alan, appreciate that. All right, let's go ahead and get to the reports, and, hey, we want to do a police report?
I would love to.
Yeah, come on in, so you can grab a seat. It's going good. I'll stand over here today. Switch it up a little bit.
So, normally I give papers out, but when I was trying to get ready at the precinct, there were like 5 people trying to print stuff out. So I just ended up just giving up and I just wrote it all down real quick to come over here. So first of all, we have a new chief who started yesterday. I don't know if you all know that. He comes from Peoria, Arizona, where there's hardly any crime, so he's gonna have a nice rude awakening. And he started yesterday. His name is Roy Minter, so we'll see how things go with that. Last month, I had to run in very quickly and then run right back out because there was a guy who thought it was wise to shoot at the police in Georgetown after he had carjacked and robbed a lady at gunpoint. So then they came on the radio and said that they were in a pursuit with him, that they were requesting help. And then when he crashed, he started shooting. So we all had to go over there. I hit 107 miles an hour on Abercorn Street, and then there was another officer behind me going even faster. So luckily I did not arrest him. The roads were slicking wet. But that guy ended up getting arrested, so now he's off the streets. And he also was the robbery in a Parker's incident where Parker's had gotten robbed. So he was out robbing people, robbing businesses, things like that. So in the last month, there have been 2 entering autos in Parkside. One of them was on August 4th, which was in Daphne Park. The guy's door was possibly left unlocked. He realized it after a baseball game. He didn't think anything was stolen. And then August 23rd, in the 1300 block of East 48th, a vehicle was left unlocked, and these people had went into it. And they actually arrested 2 people in that incident. And then there was 2 people that are still at large. The people who were arrested were actually charged with 5 counts of entering auto because they were going through Parkside and going through Ardsley Park, just opening car doors that were left unlocked around, I want to say 12 o'clock midnight or 12:30, and someone had called them in walking around early, going up in people's yards. So when they were approached, they all took off running, and out of the 4 of them, 2 of them got caught. And the funny thing is, Officer Gauze, I don't know if y'all remember him or not, he came to one of the meetings. He and I had just talked to the guys the day before in Mario Land, which is where they live at, which is off of Skidaway, near where the skating rink used to be at. Y'all know where that is, near McDonald's and all that. But we were walking around Mario Land and we saw these guys, and when they saw us, they tried to dip on us, but we cut them off and they couldn't. So we were talking to them, and then the very same night, there they go breaking into people's cars. I really shouldn't say breaking them because everything was left unlocked, so they didn't really break anything. But throughout the entire city, though, we have had a huge rise in entering autos, and it seems like every time we do something on social media or when the department used to do the campaign, the nightly lockup, or when we go to and tell people to lock their car doors, it seems like more people leave them unlocked. So, but we have had throughout the entire department, throughout the entire city, where we have had a very large increase in entering autos, where 95% of the vehicles are being left unlocked. And every time we arrest one person, there's 3 more people that are the friends of the person that gets arrested that's still out there. Just like the one that happened on the 1300 block of East 48th. There were 4 people involved altogether, and 2 of them got caught. So there's 2 guys that are still out there doing it. And then the 2 that got arrested got bonded on the same day anyways. So just keep that in mind. And then there was one guy one time that said, he was like, why would I go to a bad area and steal? He's like, when all the good stuff is in the nice areas. So also keep that in mind, because a lot of people are saying they live in a certain area and that crime doesn't happen in their areas, but then when we get these people, and then the guys that we arrested, they talked and admitted to everything. But they were just saying stuff like, we go through these neighborhoods because we know that people are going to leave their doors unlocked and stuff like that, and it's just so easy to steal from them. So why would we go somewhere where it's dangerous to steal from, where if we get caught, people are going to shoot us? Whereas if we go to a nicer area, we're not going to get shot at, and it's very easy to do it. So just keep that in mind. All right. So, does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns, issues, anything at all?
Well, what was the details or what you could know about on 49th Street on, was it Saturday? With the SWAT and,
Okay, yeah.
all that stuff?
So yeah, that's pretty much what it is. A guy stabbed his mother, and then, she called and said that, she got stabbed, so, they didn't wanna, they didn't.
To the beauty shop.
Yeah.
Because I live right there, and the beauty shop locked him out. He was off of his meds.
Yeah.
Like a young
He was 16.
So they had, they called the SWAT team, they called the hostage negotiations team, which I'm a part of, and then, they went over and made announcements. He ended up coming outside and surrendering, and he was
That's good.
arrested, so. Yeah, and then there was also another incident where we had gotten called out on, Waters and 53rd, and that whole incident was taken way out of proportion, because I got so many calls, not from people in Parkside, but just from people in general. Even my mom was asking me what was going on, where people were like, yeah, we heard there's like a guy shooting at people and running up to houses and all that. I don't know where any of that came from, but with that one, a guy had gotten shot at Waters and 53rd, who had a felony warrant, by the way, for his arrest. And actually, I had dealt with that guy 2 years ago when he broke into someone's house and stole the car out of the driveway, and then he was involved in a shooting the next day. So anyways, this guy had a felony warrant for his arrest. He ended up getting shot.
Did he get shot in the head?
No, he didn't. He got shot I think he got grazed somewhere in his lower body. So, he got out within a couple hours from the hospital and went to jail, but, the suspects they ran near a house at Waters and 53rd, but by the camera footage, it looked like they had ran inside of the house. So they called SWAT and they called hostage negotiations out there. And then when we had cleared the residence, there was nobody in there. But there were people coming outside, walking up to everybody, going like, what's going on? So a lot of people had to be yelled at, told to get back inside of their house and all that, and then people were being mad. But better be safe than sorry, because if they walk out and walk up to an incident like that and then they get hurt, then they're gonna blame the police for telling them not to go inside. So, and which that's happened before too, so. Yeah. Anything else? Anyone else have anything? Well, if y'all need me, just hit me up and let me know. I'm gonna go grab something to eat real quick while I'm starving, so.
All right, thanks, Sharif, appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, great. Gary, you wanna do your code compliance, chat?
Hi, my name's Officer Bronstein, I'm in code compliance. Don't have a whole lot in this neighborhood. We've had a couple of derelict vehicles that were on the streets. If the vehicle does not have a curb tag or no tag or flat tires, appears not to well, try not to park on a public street. We do drive around the neighborhood and we'll tag them. We send a big orange sticker and we have for 10 days to remove it or that is really it. We had one complaint from 311 on Washington Avenue here about some tires being stolen. And sure enough, there's a bunch of tires on the property, which mosquitoes and rodents says you cannot have more than 10 tires stored on private property. We asked them to remove them, and they did. And that's really it. Any questions?
Okay, well, I'll bring something up that's come up on social media, on our Parkside Open chat. A couple of people expressed concern that they were being targeted by another neighbor through code compliance. So they were receiving a lot of complaints and sort of, well, the way they described it was harassment, but I'm not gonna describe it that way, but that's the way that they described it. And I just wanted to sort of get sort of your view on, like, is that something that can happen? I mean, how do you sort of deal with that?
It definitely can happen. We have to take every complaint. They all go through 311 in the city, and then it goes to different departments. For example, if there's a sanitation complaint, it goes to sanitation. If there's a sewer leak somewhere, it'll go to different departments. We get the property maintenance complaints and things like that, as well as like derelict vehicles or junk vehicles or abandoned vehicles. So someone could, if they kept on calling on their neighbor and saying, oh, there's this problem, We will go out and take a look at it, because we do take everything seriously. If there is no violations, we dismiss it as invalid and move on. For example, if someone calls about the neighbor's home, and that's high grass, we could go there, if the grass is in fact very high, we would have to write papers to correct. I mean, we put it on their door, or not on the door, and then we give them, whatever, a few days to a week to correct it. And once they've mowed their lawn, I mean, that's it, we come back, we inspect it, and dismiss it. That's it. So, as long as there's no violations, obviously we can't, no targeting. But yes, I mean, it is possible for a neighbor to keep on calling, saying, oh, this neighbor has this, this, that. But if there's no violations, then we just, dismiss it.
Is there feedback to the person who issued the complaint?
It's issued anonymously, that's the problem. Anyone can dial 311 and say, there's high grass and weeds on this and this property. And, it feeds down to us, and we will drive by and take pictures if it is in fact high grass. And then, as I said, we would issue notice, give them, a few days to a week, and, come back. If in fact the grass was low, then we wouldn't do anything. Or if someone might complain that there's an abandoned vehicle sitting in front of their house, we would drive by, look at the vehicle. If there's nothing wrong with the vehicle, it has a current tag, it's flat tires, it's perfectly fine, we would dismiss it. There's nothing wrong with it. A lot of parking on this, street in front of the house, just wants legal parking. But if the car does not in fact have a tag or an expired tag, then we would have to, put down a notice to remove it. So unless the violation is that in fact, if there is a violation, then, we would do something. If there's no violation, then we just dismiss it.
All right, does anybody have any other questions for Gary?
How high is too high for grass?
By ordinances, it's 10 inches.
Oh, no.
And we usually, if it's raining, we'll drive around. If we do get a complaint though, and it is kind of high, we will. Usually, raining all the time, and people, usually they mow on the weekend. If it's a Friday, we're driving by and we see it, we might just drive back on Monday and see if they cut it. So,
Is there a height limit on how high bushes can grow on tree lawns where
There
it might impact?
there's no ordinance on bushes or trees. They're trying to, I think, they're trying to pass, our director is putting in an ordinance for overgrown bushes and trees, but there was no specific height involved.
Because sometimes they can block the view.
Right,
Yeah.
and that you can call up 311 and Parks, Greenscapes will actually come by, and if it's on the right of way, the
Tree line?
right of way, yeah, tree lines, they will trim.
Or if it's blocking the sidewalk.
Yeah, correct.
So that's a 311 line?
And that would be 311 as well. A lot of times they'll come to us, but we can come look at it and we can transfer it to Greenscapes.
Awesome. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. I think at this point, it would be also good to mention that we do actually have a neighborhood mediator. It's Chuck Watson. He's a very long-term resident that's here. So if you do have an issue with a neighbor and you don't really want to feel like you're calling the cops on them or anything like that, getting them in trouble, and it's not being resolved with a face-to-face meeting, or you just prefer not to do that, you can reach out to us and we'll put you in touch with the mediator. And we've had a couple of successful mediations over the last couple of years where issues were totally resolved. So that's an option as well. So feel free to ask us, or you can do it on social media. You can send us a message. parksidesav@gmail.com is our email address if you want to send something semi-anonymously or however you want to do it. We do have that as something that we have in the neighborhood as well. So, all right, so we have two main things on the agenda for today. We've got the final vote on the conservation district, but before that, we're going to have Jeffrey is here with Mosquito Control today, and he's going to talk a little bit about that, and he's going to take some questions. I know some people have some questions about this, so.
All right, I got some brochures here about West Nile if anybody's interested. I'll put them on the table here and you can start passing them around if you want. Thank you for the invitation to talk to y'all. Give you a little idea about what we do at Mosquito Control. Like you said, my name is Jeff Heisel. I'm the director of Mosquito Control. I've been with the county now for 36 years, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. It's all been mosquito control. We've got a great group of people over there, and they're very dedicated to what they do. How many of y'all have had any dealings with mosquito control? Okay.
Do you mean people who work at Mosquito Control?
Yes.
No.
Okay, well, we actually kind of prefer it that way. We tend to stay in the background as much as possible. A lot of the work that we do actually takes place out of the eye of the public in places where you don't usually have people. One of the major sites that we have to treat on a regular basis are the dredge sites across the river in South Carolina. That is one of the largest man-made salt marsh breeding sites on the East Coast. About 5,600 acres there, and that will produce, well, we did an estimate once, and if all 5,600 acres were breeding at one point, you have the potential for 30 million salt marsh mosquitoes at one time. But the bright side to that is half of them are going to be males, which don't bite, so you only have 15 million. But that's just an example of the kind of issues that we deal with, and we try to do it as unobtrusively as possible. In fact, the salt marsh mosquitoes are one of the primary reasons for the creation of mosquito control here in Chatham County. There was a referendum back in 1957 that started the whole process of creating mosquito control. And since then, we have come quite a distance. When I first started with mosquito control in 1982, it was not unusual for us to have anywhere from 4 to 6 outbreaks of salt marsh mosquitoes that basically inundated the county. In fact, if you lived anywhere on the island areas, Whitmarsh, Wilmington, etc., you got hammered all the time. We have gotten now to a point through better methods of treatment, better materials, more accuracy with our treatments. We've gotten to the point now where, as far as salt marsh mosquitoes go, we're in a maintenance mode. We know when they breed, we know where they're going to be at, and we can usually take care of them before they become adults. Now, there are going to be periods when weather works against us, because we have a limited time window of about 2 to 3 days to actually treat them while they're still in the water. But so if we get rain, like perfect example was a couple of months ago when it just didn't stop raining. When we have periods like that, all we can do is sit there and wait for them to come off. But when that does happen now, our capabilities as far as being able to treat for those mosquitoes as adults is greatly increased as well. So we can usually get them under control in several days, and it used to take several weeks. Obviously, everybody's heard about West Nile. That is out. That's pretty much our big issue nowadays. And we happen to be right now in the midst of probably, it's coming on at least our second most active year since West Nile arrived in 1999. Well, actually here in 2001. We have had, what we do to monitor for West Nile, we've got a very active or proactive approach to it. We put out traps to monitor the specific mosquito that will transmit West Nile from bird to bird, and at times from bird to human. From bird to human. Basically, birds, wild birds, all the nice birds that we see around, are the wild host for West Nile virus. Obviously not all of them, but there are a number of them that do get infected. And in this particular case, this year, it seems like we've got a rather large number. We put out traps that are specifically targeting those particular mosquitoes. when we bring those traps in, we're bringing in live mosquitoes. We actually freeze them, identify them out to the species that we're interested in. We send them off to a lab to be tested. And what we do is we'll send about 20 of them in a little vial, and that's what we refer to as a mosquito pool. So that vial goes to the lab, they basically crunch it up and test it, and if any of those 20 mosquitoes had West Nile virus in its system, it'll show up in the test. At this point now, we've got about 83 pools of mosquitoes from Chatham County that have come up positive. Yes, ma'am.
About out of how many is that?
We have, on each month, or each week, we'll put out approximately 28 traps. And those are scattered obviously throughout the county. What we normally see, and again, West Nile hasn't been here that long, so normal still isn't really that well determined, but what we have normally seen in the past is the downtown, midtown area, actually from the Savannah River all the way down to Montgomery Crossroads and from the Forest River over to 516 was what we considered our traditional hot zone, because that's where we were seeing most of the positive mosquitoes in the past. And usually what would happen is we'd have it appear in one place, then in another downtown, and then maybe start spreading out a little bit. What was extremely unusual about this year is when we first got the first indications of West Nile, it was from one end of the county to the other. We had positive mosquitoes on Tybee, and we had them in Cooler, and then pretty much everywhere in between. So that has been extremely unusual. And that has prompted us to do the types of treatments that we're doing now. We've been extremely busy with that. Our focus is to target that particular mosquito that is responsible for carrying West Nile, and to try to keep the numbers of that mosquito down to a reasonable level so that humans are less likely to become involved. Obviously, there's no fix. You can't guarantee there won't be any human cases, but we're hoping the treatments that we're doing will do a good enough job of minimizing the possibility. That's what we found over the last 15, 20 years, and that's what we have to keep with. So, yes, ma'am.
I, for the first time, was out when the helicopters were spraying and got very, very sick last week. And it lasted a week, and I was on CPAP and antibiotics and all that, high fever. And I'm wondering, have you changed the spray at all because of the West Nile virus?
No, as a matter of fact, the product that we're using is the same product that we've been using since 2004. Really nothing has changed. Our delivery method hasn't changed. The product that we're using is one of the better products for use in public space spraying of any of the mosquito control products that we have available to us. Bear in mind, whatever products we use have to be labeled for use in public space spraying for mosquitoes. These products have been tested quite a bit, and what we're using, the product we're using is called Trump. That's the trade name for it. And we're putting it out at a rate of 0.6 of an ounce per acre. Now, if you can visualize what 0.6 of an ounce is and try spreading that over an acre, bottom line is it's extremely small amount. But we're putting it out in a fine mist that is designed to come down but stay airborne as much as possible to come in contact with the mosquitoes that are flying. It has virtually no residual effect. So what little bit ends up on plants or anything else is usually detoxified very quickly. either with exposure to sunlight, exposure to water, any number of things like that will break it down very quickly. And in terms of what we have available for mosquito control, adulticiding, that one has the best label. You know, it's well, the other thing is in 2004, we did, we evaluated our program to see what was working and what wasn't, because 2003 was our worst year, at least up to date anyway. With West Nile, we had 10 human cases, and we evaluated our program to see if there's something we needed to change, and we ended up doing a number of things. What we found out was that the peak activity period for this particular mosquito, if you're interested, it's Culex quinquefasciatus. I'm sure you all remember that. It's what's known as its common name is southern house mosquito. Now this mosquito, the peak activity period, what we found out is about an hour before to an hour after sunset. The problem that we were having is at that point, we were trying to do morning sprays, which weren't nearly as effective, obviously, because the peak activity period was in the evening. The other thing we were doing at that point was using our trucks most of the time. And the problem with the trucks is number one, we weren't using the same product in the trucks that we're now using. We were using a different product. And the trucks actually take about 3 to 4 hours to treat an area. Now, when I say an area, that's the way those areas were designed, was for the trucks to be able to cover the whole road system in a particular area within 3 to 4 hours. The problem there is they may start out when the mosquitoes are most active, but then there's usually about 2 hours there when the mosquito activity is dropping off. What we found was that doing helicopter treatments, we could actually target that peak activity period within a 30-minute window and cover the same acreage that 4 or 5 trucks were doing in 4 or 5 hours. So it was much more effective, much more efficient, and it actually did a better job because the trucks were limited to roadways and places like that, whereas our helicopters were able to actually get good coverage over the whole area. So we did that. Last thing we did was we sent samples of that mosquito off to CDC for testing to see if there was any resistance problems. And unfortunately what we found was that particular mosquito was resistant to every compound except the one that we're now using. So from that standpoint, we actually really had very little choice what we were going to use. And as it turns out, it was still really the best choice anyway. So,
Are there, sorry.
oh, go ahead.
Are there new emerging technologies, specifically biologics?
Well, I don't know if y'all have heard about the genetically modified mosquitoes that they're testing down the Keys. They've done some testing with that, but they've gotten an awful lot of pushback on that as well, obviously. That's a possibility, but I think it's probably going to require a good bit of testing before they'll ever get around to doing that on any kind of large scale basis. Biological controls, by their nature, are not really going to be effective at achieving any good level of control. We actually tried this back in the early 90s with a mosquito that is predaceous on other mosquito larvae. It's a large mosquito, about that big, but the adults do not feed on blood. They feed on nectar. So you don't have a problem with them biting humans. The problem is you have your standard mosquito, whether it's the salt marsh or whatever, it can go from egg to an adult in 5 to 7 days. This particular mosquito that we were looking at takes about 2 to 3 weeks to go through that same cycle. we actually were growing, we had a big vat, or a big screened-in area in the back, that we were growing these mosquitoes, and we started releasing them to see if we could get them to actually start controlling these particular mosquitoes. And what we found is half of them flew off, I don't know where. Bottom line is we found very, very few of them in the containers and such that we thought we would see them in. There are other biologicals, but I know people talk about bats, they talk about purple martins. The bottom line is, somebody did a study of what was in a normal bat's stomach, and the percentage of mosquitoes in there was, I want to say it was like 0.05. I mean, it just wasn't a negligible amount. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If a bat's flying around and it sees a moth over here, and it sees a mosquito over here, it's gonna go for the buffet. You know, it's gonna go for the big thing. It's just makes sense. And there really are not any, I take that back. We do have one very good natural predator for mosquitoes, and it's called the Gambusia finis, which is what we call the mosquito fish. It's actually found in any permanent body of water that you have around here. If you see minnows in those, that's the mosquito fish. Now they'll flat out eat mosquito larvae. They'll munch on those all day. And that's really why we don't have issues with most of the marsh area around here, because number one, you have a tidal swing coming in at 7 to 9 foot tidal swing each day. That does a lot of flushing anyway. Plus, with that tidal swing, you also have the fish coming in. And they will take care of any mosquito breeding that might try to occur in those areas. So, you know, it's a great benefit we have around here. It's our cheapest employees. We don't have to pay them anything. They do a fantastic job. But again, they're limited as to how much they can do and where they can be. So, you know, biological controls are at least at this point are not really a viable option. They just don't. They won't reach the level of control that most people want. Yes, sir.
Jeff, in the interest of time, we're gonna have to
Sure.
kind of come to an end here.
Sorry,
No, you're very thorough, that's good. Do you have some, email address or phone number if people have questions? If they can
Actually,
reach out to you?
I have, what's on that there? Let me give you a couple of the, I only got a couple of my cards here. I'll hand you a couple of these and maybe you can make copies of them.
We'll have our social media person put it up on
Okay.
the Parkside Open Chat as well, and we'll.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to take any questions. Yes, that's our main number, 790-2540.
Okay, so that's on the brochure, which
It's on the
there's a
brochure.
big stack there if you want.
And let me also point out, if you're not aware of it, we have a notification list. Anytime we're going to be doing adult treatments in any area, we will notify the people in that area 24 hours in advance of the treatment. You can call our office and get on the list that way, or you can go onto our website, and down at the bottom of the main page, there's a place for getting on the call list. If you do go that route, please download the little instruction sheet that goes with it, because it's actually a two-part process. And a lot of people will stop at the first part and never get on our actual list. So. Anyway, any other questions?
Thank you so much, Jeff. Really we're running a little short on time, but Julian, I saw that you came in. Did you have anything that you wanted to give the short Julian version of right now?
Short Julian version, walked 49th Street with Heath today. There are 4 large cracks, up to 4 large cracks that they're going to dig up and put a strip down rather than just fill the crack. and they're unhappy with the sealer that they're gonna seal the smaller cracks with, so they're researching a better sealer. And he was supposed to email me a date when they would start, and I haven't gotten it, but we haven't forgotten it.
Okay. So, it continues.
Is there any chance to bring that laser cutter back in and finish the rest of the area that was cleaned off? The one side that they treated looks better than it did, but now the streets look silly because a third of them are corrected and 2/3 are not.
No, strangely, there are people who object to that, because of
Nothing
the
is
historical nature of the street. I think we've done what we're gonna do there. That was to take out the rough areas that we created with a mistake. And they're through with the street, but we have to address the cracks.
There was one other thing that Pete last meeting said they would do, and that's the pressure washing.
They do a
That's
test. He did commit to doing a test of the
Yeah.
pressure washing.
To get the staining off. So that-
He didn't remember that he committed to do a test of the pressure washing. He thought he'd said no. I'll ask him about that.
We have it in.
We'll pull out the clip.
But we
on,
did
on
talk
our video.
about that today, and he does not believe pressure washing is gonna make a difference on those things, because it's asphalt's gotta come off, and you don't think pressure
Well, there are
washing-
two different issues, and I think we need to get on the same page with these, because there's staining, which pressure washing will remove, and then there are residual tar or asphalt, which it won't. And he's probably thinking about the residual asphalt.
That's what he said.
But that's a minority of what's on the road. The majority is just black staining. So, and that was what he,
I'll bring it up to him, and I'll copy you on the email,
sure,
so you can, feel free to jump in there.
okay.
All right, so the project continues.